Hello, it's Mr. Minnick, helping my students prepare for the AP Computer Science exam. I'm going to do a walkthrough of the demo program in Unit 11, called Exceptions 1. If you click on that link and highlight all of the code and copy and paste it into a Java IDE such as Eclipse, you'll be able to execute the program and follow with me. I encourage you to do that. In my case, I have a project called Junk, and I'm going to have to rename the class Junk. But other than that, there's no difference. Okay, let's execute the program. And we first see that we hit a arithmetic exception error. On line number 11, apparently there is a division by 0 issue. So here we are at a line number 11, and denominator happens to be equal to 0. And you can't divide an integer by 0. So that's something you have to know for the AP exam. You have to know when an arithmetic exception error is thrown by a program during runtime. Okay, I'm going to comment out that line of code, effectively ignoring that issue. And let's re-execute the program. And the next error that we see is an array index out of bounds exception error on line number 15. Something to do with 10, position 10. Let's see here. On line 15, I'm trying to store the number 99 into index position 10 of the array scores. Well, there is no position 10. Scores has a length of 4, and this last position is considered index position 3. 0, 1, 2, 3. So that is illegal, and in Java it does not squiggly underline as a compile error. So if you try to execute the program, it crashes the program with a runtime error, and as we see, it's called specifically an array index out of bounds exception error because we're out of bounds beyond the length of the array. Okay, I comment out that line of code, run the program again, and we see even though the length of this array is 4, there is no position 4, and this 99 has nowhere to go. It's illegal to do that as well, so any number 4 or greater will cause this array index out of bounds exception error when used in the square brackets. Okay, moving on. In this demo program, running the program again, we see the next error that's illustrated is an index out of bounds exception error. An index line, looks like it's on line 35. Well, on line 35, that's illegal. You can't get index position 13 of the array list words because the array list words only has a size of 3 at this point in the program. This works, get 1. That apparently does work. Let's see what that printed out. Apparently the word Reading printed out because of get 1. But get 13 doesn't exist. Position 13 doesn't exist, so that's an index out of bounds exception error. So an array list throws index out of bounds exception errors, whereas an array throws an array index out of bounds exception error. And the same with this line of code. If I comment out the get 13 and execute the program, even this get3 doesn't work because there is no position 3. Puts down is in position 2, and there is no position 3. So be wary of index out of bounds exception errors when you're working with an array list. Now I did skip over something in this program right here that I need to illustrate. So let's bring line 25 back into play by uncommenting out that line of code, and we'll see the squiggly underline error is giving us a compile error because we cannot convert the numeric value 19,610. We can't cast it to a string. You just can't do that. That throws what's called a Classcastexception error. In this case, it was caught by the compiler. And if I try to run the program, I can't because it has a compile error, but it is considered an exception. And specifically, you should know that it's considered to be a class cast exception because you cannot cast an integer object into a string. Now what you can do in Java, even though this is kind of cheesy, you can take an integer object and concatenate it with an empty string. And the act of doing that causes the integer to be turned into a string, and as you see right here, it's being effectively stored in a string variable. And if I run the program now with this setup, we are successfully printing out the string 19610. I don't pronounce it as 19,610 because it's not really a number. It's more like the local zip code where we happen to live here as students or teachers in the Wyomissing, West Reading area. Okay, moving on. I'm going to run the program again and notice that the next error that is illustrated by this program is a null pointer exception error on line 45. So I scroll down here to line 45, and apparently the object variable name3 hasn't been instantiated yet. Let's trace this area of the program. Name3 is being declared right here as a string. But because we don't have anything in double quotes here, and because we don't type out the optional new string default constructor, because none of that exists, we are temporarily initializing name3 to null, which in Java really means nothing. It's pretty much the same thing as doing this, I believe. The compiler catches that error, but if you type null, the compiler doesn't even catch it, and when you run the program, you get a null pointer exception because of what you see here on line 45. You cannot determine the length of a string that is equal to null because it doesn't really exist. You can't weigh a baby before the baby is born, before the mother gives birth to the actual baby. You can't weigh the baby and consider it to be an object. It's not really born yet. It's in the mother's womb, but it's not really formally outside of the womb yet. So that's my cheap example there. At any rate, this method, length, cannot be used when name3 is still not equal to something that's in double quotes. So I do see up here that if it is set equal to empty string, name1, that does have a length. Now the length of that is 0. But null is not the same thing as what we sometimes call this the null string. Null string is not equal to null. They're two different concepts. Moving on I'm going to comment out that line of code there. Run the program again. The next error is a string index out of bounds on line 61. So we see right here that you cannot do 15, 16 if the string is owl. Well, no duh. There is no index position 15 of this word. The L is in index position 2, so 15 would be way out here and it doesn't exist. So don't confuse string index out of bounds exception with the plain index out of bounds exception with array lists, or the array index out of bounds exception with arrays. Three different kinds of out of bounds errors that you are responsible for understanding on the AP exam. Please read over the other examples that here to fully understand all the different variations that they sometimes ask you on multiple choice questions of the AP exam. For example, 1, 2 here is legal with the word cat. 2, 3 is legal with the word dog. Even though that 3 is doesn't really exist, as long as the 2, the first parameter, exists as a position, like the G, it's legal. 15, 16 we just realized is not legal. I'm going to comment that out. And the 3, 4 is illegal because that position 3 does not exist. Moving on. Oh, I'll show you that. We didn't actually see that, so I'm going to execute the program right now to see that, yes, string index out of bounds exception error on line 65 does occur right here as explained. Okay, finishing up. I have one more to illustrate one more type of exception that you're responsible for knowing on the AP exam. Something called an illegal argument exception error. Well, I had to create this static method that I named compute sales tax. And because I wrote the code this way using a throw keyword, this method, if given a negative number as a parameter, as an argument here for base price, it executes this line of code, and this error message, the special custom error message, gets returned in a sense. It gets thrown, as we call it, with the word throw, not the word return. And anyway, in the program, that special error message shows up. I could have said anything I wanted to there. I could say, if I were Santa Claus, I could say, "You have been naughty this year." So something very Java, something very informal or kind of ridiculous, I could use as an error message when this program runs. So you could put your own custom error messages in code if somebody does not meet one of your preconditions for a method. You could say something like precondition. Oh, I don't know why this isn't typing the letter D. Just ignore that. You could say the base price has to be greater than or equal to 0. And if that condition is not met by the call statement, you can then do whatever you want. On the AP exam, you will not have to write code that uses a throw. And you probably will not have to read code on the multiple choice section that has a throw. But you are supposed to know what an illegal argument exception is roughly, and here's your example. They have not been asking questions recently about illegal state exception. So see me in class if you have a question about that. Okay, have fun with this program. Test it, use it, so that you can really learn exceptions, and see me if you have any other further questions.